Before we start the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. And now, let's go. Story 1. They say Counter-Strike 1.6 is just a game. Pixel's old code, dusty maps. They say there's no such thing as haunted data. No ghosts in abandoned servers. They say a lot of things. But I'm telling you, they're wrong. There's a rumor passed around on dead forums, whispered in LAN cafes that haven't closed yet, or mumbled at 3 a.m. on Discord voice calls between guys too scared to admit they saw something. It's about a player named Liam Holloway. And I swear to God, he's real. Liam was just like the rest of us. Another basement-sitting, energy drink-chugging CS addict. But he had something different. Obsession. The_Dust wasn't just his favorite map, it was his world. He didn't even play with others anymore. Just booted up a private server. No bots. No objectives. Just walking it. For hours. Days. Weeks. Then one night he vanished. Not offline. Vanished. No logout. No last message. His game was still running when they found his apartment, but he was gone. His PC was humming. The monitor showed an empty The_Dust server. Just a desert map and nothing else. Some say he finally snapped. Others say something darker happened. I didn't believe any of it. Until it happened to me. It was a Sunday night. 2:36 a.m. I was bored. Tired. But not sleepy. The worst kind of feeling. I decided to boot up 1.6. Nostalgia fix. I launched into The_Dust. No bots. Just me. Running through the map like I always did when I needed silence. That hollow echo of my footsteps on the stone. The distant wind in the speakers. Comforting. Familiar. Then something shifted. I noticed the lighting was off. It wasn't the same sunny yellow I remembered. It had a bluish tint, cold, sterile. The kind of light you see in an empty morgue. I stopped at bomb site B. That's when I noticed it. The chat flickered. Player, Liam_Holloway has joined the game. I didn't type that. I didn't add any players. My heart dropped into my stomach. I spun my character around. Nothing. Empty. I told myself it was a glitch. Maybe some plugin I forgot to disable. Then I heard it. Crunch. Footsteps. Not mine. Close. I stood frozen in front of the double doors. Slowly, I turned the mouse to the left corridor near CT spawn. And there, half hidden behind a crate, was a CT player model. Still, staring. He didn't move. Just stood there in the shadows. Watching me. I typed, Liam. No response. Then, out of nowhere, my screen flashed, white static like a VHS tearing. My headphones rang with sharp digital feedback like distorted breathing. I jumped so hard, I nearly fell out of my chair. The screen went black for a moment. Then the game returned, but everything was darker. The colors were drained, as if the map had died and no one bothered to bury it. And Liam was gone. Or so I thought. I ran through the map, panic rising in my chest. Every turn felt wrong. I'd walked this map thousands of times, but now the hallways felt longer. Endless. The skybox above looked like it was sinking, like the sun was collapsing. I tried to quit. Escalar G4. Control plus Alt plus Delete. Nothing worked. The game wouldn't let me leave. Then the whisper came. Through my headset. Barely audible. You shouldn't be here. I stopped moving. The sound wasn't in the game. It was in my ears. Inside my head. Suddenly, a blur darted across my screen, right in front of me. A CT model lunging from behind a corner and disappearing just as quickly. No sound. No footsteps. No bullets. Just movement. And then, boom. My screen exploded in red. Not blood. Not graphics. Real red. Raw. Fleshy red. Like something living had pulsed through the monitor and into my eyes. A text box appeared in the middle of my screen. Round starting. And I was back at T-spawn. But something was wrong. I looked at my weapon. It was gone. I had no HUD, no gun, no ammo, no way to fight. And then I saw him, Liam, up on the ledge above me, arms limp, head tilted unnaturally to the side. He looked empty, like a corpse that forgot how to fall down. Then his mouth opened. His model glitched violently, pixels snapping outward like breaking bone. He said no, screamed, still, playing. The sound ripped through my headphones like a demon crawling through a modem. I tore the headset off, heart pounding like a drum, and yanked the power cable from my PC. The room fell into blackness. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't touch 1.6 again. But the worst part? Sometimes when my PC boots for just a second, I hear that wind from _dust. And once, just once, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. and found my monitor glowing. It said, "Player, your name has rejoined the game." I didn't click anything. I didn't press start. I swear I turned everything off. So I'm telling you this as a warning. Don't go alone into _dust. Don't play at night. And if you ever hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around. Because Liam might be watching you. Story 2. For the past, I don't know how many years will I know exactly how many years I have hated this life, not necessarily my own life, but this boring life on Earth. Watching movies and TV shows really has affected my brain, and I always go to sleep expecting some supernatural will occur. When I wake up the next morning, I had tried everything putting up charms when I go to sleep or researching about astral travels and how people have been able to go to other world through it. It has been about 6 years since I have been expecting something like that to happen. But I thought to myself to put an end to it. I wanted myself to pull out from this world that I had created myself in my head that didn't exist. I thought that maybe something really supernatural will happen and I will be able to live the life that I wanted to live. A life full of hope and adventure. I would have gladly given up this life of mine to live that life at any cost. I thought that maybe that is something I always have been using to cope and escape from my real world problems. So I gave it up. I stopped hoping for anything supernatural or out of this world to happen. And when I went to sleep, forever letting go of that hope that something will finally change. The first few weeks, I felt happier than I had ever been before. But something really were changing at that time that I had put up a blind eye to. The G string of my guitar that would always go out of tune, or that face of a baby I saw whenever I entered my room. I thought these were mere nothings and coincidences because I didn't want myself to expect something magical to happen to me again and cling on to that world of imagination and run away from my life. The coincidences that I thought that were mere nothings really started to pile up in my 3rd week. Now, at this point my house was filled with eyes that were constantly staring at me, but I thought of this as something my brain was creating out of frustration. Months passed, but I never stopped seeing weird things now. I had been basically living with them. Everywhere when I saw them staring at me every moment. My life had been filled with them, but I pretended not to notice them at all and kept continuing with my ordinary life. After about a month, I stopped seeing those faces, but the eyes haunted me everywhere I went. I started doubting if I was the only one who saw these things, so I asked my coworker, but he reacted weirdly. That's then I knew that something was wrong with me. I hoped that just like how those faces disappeared, these eyes would too, but 3 months passed, nothing happened. At this moment, I started seeing eyes in front of my mirror when I tried to see my reflection and in photos when I clicked a picture of myself. I started to look at my old group photos of my high school days. What I found shocked me. There was just a big eye instead of me. I started to freak out. I panicked. I started vomiting because of the disgust, but later those vomits would also contain eyes who would only look at me. Several months had passed, but one day I was able to astral travel, a thing that I had not been able to do in my entire life. I saw a dark room whispering one sentence in a loop. You want a different word. At that moment, I was happy that what had been a dream for so long would finally come true. My brain stopped thinking because of my happiness. I said yes in a loud manner the moment I answered yes. I woke up. I was happy to know that I would be in a different world. I ran outside to see, but what I saw was a world where there was no one, and that word which resembled mine, a word where there were eyes everywhere staring at me constantly, not only in my house, but in the buildings, sewers. I look up TP the sun, but there was a massive eyeball looking down on me. I was terrified. I saw shadows of people I knew whispering. I just saw shadows roaming around me. I was so terrified that I could have gotten a heart attack. Breathing heavily, I continued to explore this world. I saw dead bodies of people I didn't know. Bodies that were hanging in the streets. I felt like I needed to leave this world. I started to notice loud noises from the sewers. I cried and begged and cried so hard that my eyes would have popped out. I begged so hard that my lungs would come out. I begged and begged to get out of this world. 3 days I begged and cried. My vocal cords were destroyed. I realized that no matter how much I begged, this eyes would just stare at me. One more month passed, then I realized everything. I was the one who chose this world. I kept seeing eyes everywhere because I was still wishing for something supernatural to happen. Deep down, I still hated my own world, and at the end, when I was given an option to accept that word, I rejected it without thinking twice. As a result, my own world rejected me. That was the reason, no matter how much I begged, I couldn't go back. I thought to myself, if I had answered no, maybe I could have lived a life worth living with no eyes staring at me. I would have made friends, got married, and had children, and lived an ordinary life. At the end, I grabbed a rope which was on dead body. I went up to a building, I found a fan, and I hung myself while I was surrounded by the eyes. I regretted the decision that I had made. When I was close to death, I saw the faces that I used to see in my room that had disappeared, surrounding me and staring at me. That's where I closed my eyes forever. The end. Story 3. I've debated posting this for a long time, but no matter how much time passes, I can't forget what happened. Neither can Abigail. We don't talk about it. Not because we're over it, but every time we do, something always happens. I don't usually post stuff like this. Honestly, I still feel kind of crazy even thinking about it. What happened? And if you're reading this, just listen. Please. It was last summer, and everything at home was unraveling fast. My parents fought constantly. Not little arguments, loud, vicious fights that made the walls shake. About money. About trust. About things they thought I couldn't understand. I used to sit in the hallway at night, hugging my knees just in case it got physical. Sometimes, I swear I could hear glass breaking and someone crying behind a closed door. One night, my mom snapped. She stuffed a few clothes into a bag, grabbed my arm, and told me we were leaving. No explanation, just that we were going to stay with her mother. My grandmother. I'd never met her. My mom barely spoke about her, and when she did, her voice always dropped a little. All I knew was that she lived in a small town tucked away in the hills. One of those places where even the dogs seem to know you don't belong. We got there just before the sun dipped behind the trees. Her house stood right at the edge of town. Its roof bowed a little like it was tired of holding on. It smelled like cedar and mothballs and something else, like something that hadn't been opened in a long time. She hugged me when we arrived, but it wasn't warm. It was tight, lingering, like she was trying to memorize me. Then she whispered, "You should have stayed in the city." At first, I thought she was just being old and dramatic, but there was something in her eyes. Not fear exactly, more like guilt, like she already knew something bad was waiting. That night at dinner, she gave me one rule: don't go near the fence. Ever. I'm not joking. Her backyard stretched all the way to a tall, rusted wire fence tangled in overgrown grass and vines. Beyond that, nothing but dense, dark forest. I asked why. She didn't blink. Things out there don't like to be noticed. That was all she said. And she changed the subject like she hadn't just dropped the creepiest line of my life. A few days later, I called my best friend Abigail. I told her about the fence, the warning, the weird energy in the house. She got hooked fast, started Googling local legends, checking Reddit, even joked about bringing sage. Surprisingly, my mom said yes when I asked if Abigail could visit. I think she just wanted me distracted, or maybe she wanted someone else to witness how strange it all felt. Abigail arrived that weekend. We were just two bored girls stuck in a ghost town. We took long walks to the store, snapped selfies by the lake, tried to laugh off how weird everything felt. But we couldn't stop looking at that fence. We didn't mean to cross it. We didn't dare each other. We just wandered too close. Saturday, just before sunset, we found a spot where the wire had been bent downward, like something had stepped over it and never returned. We stepped past it. Immediately, the air felt wrong. Not in a fantasy movie kind of way. Just too quiet. No wind. No insects. The trees seemed taller. Their branches hung low, like they were eavesdropping. We followed a narrow path, barely a trail. The dirt was soft, marked with faint footprints. Crushed beer cans. A snapped flashlight. Other people had been here. Recently. Then we heard it. Breathing. Slow. Measured. Not panicked. Not rushed. Close. Like someone was behind a tree. Just watching. Abigail whispered, "Do you hear that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Then, snap. A single twig. We bolted. The run back felt endless. The forest warped behind us, trees blurring together. I fell once, skinned my knee, didn't stop. My lungs burned. My vision tunneled. We didn't stop until we hit the fence. I tore my arm, climbing over. Blood smeared the wire. I barely noticed. We burst through the back door. My grandma stood in the kitchen, not shocked, not angry. She looked at Abigail and said calmly, "Don't leave your window open tonight." We didn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard something. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Fingernails. On glass. Abigail was already awake. I knew because she was crushing my hand, holding it so tight I thought it might bruise. We didn't look. We just listened. In the morning, there were fingerprints on the window. Not full prints. Just the tips. Like someone had stood there, silently dragging their fingers across the glass. Waiting. Nothing else happened. We left the next morning. Abigail never brought it up again. She deleted every picture from that weekend. Changed her number by the end of the year. My mom doesn't mention the visit either. When my grandma passed last month, she asked if I wanted to help clean out the house. I said no. But lately, I've been waking up at 3 a.m. Not to tapping. Not to footsteps. Just breathing. Slow. Steady. Like someone standing at the foot of my bed. Story 4. Hey r/Nosleep. This is not Nate, but instead Sarah. You know, ex-night Phil boss. Now that freak Jason's favorite thing to annoy? Yeah. Sorry. Sadly, I don't think Nate could post if he wanted to, because he's missing. If you need to get caught up, I'll link the posts made by Nathan previously. Post 1, https://r/comment/1car1yzt/I_local_work_at_their_is_something. Post 2, https://comments/1ksno5s/I_work_at_their_is_something. Fuck me, this is going to be long. How about I start by giving some insights for those who are asking questions? Yeah, that should do. 1. Will Kyle join the graveyard shift? No. Kyle isn't in another team anymore. He was fired, terminated his corporate lingo for booting someone from the team and canceling their contract. AKA, firing him. 2. Do you believe they are aliens? These freaks are definitely not alien. I don't think, considering what I witnessed Friday and the fact that Nathan is missing. 3. Does Nathan get a day off considering his schedule? Nate gets Sundays off, the lucky bugger. I made the mistake of taking Tuesdays instead. Would have been nice to take that day off instead. And before everything else, I just have to say that I'm truly sorry. This is my damn fault, most of what has happened. That all aside, everything is getting crazy. Kyle came in on Friday morning looking like he'd not slept for 20 years. Tried to get into a screaming match with David and then got dragged off the premises by security. Safe to say, he didn't take getting fired well. Then again, I'm not taking having been demoted well either. Especially with Jason as a replacement, a damn shitty one at that. Anyways, focusing, Kyle went spastic. David had him removed, right? Security terminal footage, that's something that surprisingly took a long time for me to download over to my PC. But the results are interesting. There's the usual, even some captures of Nathan's encounters on Wednesday. I can understand why he seemed rather disturbed the following day, with all that he had to endure. One thing, though, that came as a surprise is that any time David was on the footage, it marked him as an oddity, as if it thought something was wrong with him. Considering how he's been acting, I think it's reasonable to assume that he may not be human either. I'm just worried on what would happen if someone finds out, or tries to confront him. Would he go full Akira body horror monster? Would he become some sort of psychic demon? I don't know, but I'm shit scared of him. And to be honest, I'm worried about Jason, because what if David as he is not the David we knew? I recall him being so much nicer, more down to earth, while the new him is so detached. Could Jason be doing the dirty work for something wearing his uncle's skin? Again, I'm not sure, but I don't want to find out either. Horrifying realization aside, there's another issue. There's something in the vents at the store. No one else noticed, not even Nathan. He had a hunch, but he didn't believe it. I do. There's no way a vent clogs like that. No way that it smells like rotten meat. Something is in the vents, and no one is noticing it. I noticed that halfway through my shift, around 9-ish, sorry, I don't like numbers unlike Nate, when I was refilling seed bags in the pet food aisle, I could practically taste the horrid aroma on my tongue when it hit. It caused me to vomit. I felt so sick I had to call it a night. Suppose that's the one benefit to being a normal team member now. I could just flunk out when I want, as long as I have the sick leave hours for it. I lingered at my own house for a while before I straight up passed out. I had been barely sleeping for a good while, kept for some reason imagining David appearing at my door with some unnatural grin. The fear had started ever since I saw that the camera always highlighted him. I think you all can understand, right? All those consumers, as Nate called them, only had their bizarre traits highlighted, so it must have detected something extremely weird about David. Then, when I pass out, I usually also experience a lot of bizarre visions. For some reason though, this time I dreamed of the store and of it going up in flames like a funeral pyre. It felt almost prophetic, but I think it's also because, if I recall, Kyle's last words to David were, "I'll burn this house of horrors to the ground." You hear me? Writing it down now, it makes sense. I was already tired, so what else would come to mind when I pass out but the ravings of a completely psychotic man as he's being dragged out like a mental patient? Doesn't really matter though, does it? Something worse happened, which I'll get into now. So, I wake up after passing out like a total lightweight at her first rave, pull myself up, and notice I have missed 2 alarms. It was sometime around 3 in the morning, probably half past. But I know that I was definitely behind schedule, way behind. Must have been 4 in the morning when I just got into town. Another 10 minutes later, I'm at the store. I give Nathan a ring. Took 3 tries to get him to pick up. By that time, it was nearly 4:30. When Nathan finally got out of the store, he looked worn out, terrified. He was a mere 3 meters from my Uda. I was about to make a joke about him looking as if he had seen a ghost when the local clock tower struck at 4:30. Now, I tell you this with full certainty, not pulling your leg or anything, Nathan. Fucking vanished. He was still in the parking lot of Willie's. I was just outside it. He was just a couple meters away when the clock hits, and poof, no more scruffy checkout boss. I was shocked, thought maybe I'd seen something. I actively looked around, there was nothing. But his boot prints did remain, but they ended right where he had been. Nathan was gone. Gone as if he was just a ghost I had imagined. I think I stayed in the parking lot, looking around, trying to find him until 5 o'clock. That's when I knew he wasn't there. God, I tried to call him again and again. He'd pick up, but it'd just be static. I think he's out there, somewhere. Explaining such a thing to his mother would be hard. So, I had to be an absolute scumbag and lie my way into her letting me rummage through his stuff. I claimed he and I were dating, and I had taken over for the night, but misplaced the keys. I know, shitty of me. I took advantage of a lonely woman's trust to get her to give me something, but this isn't AITA. She also ate up the claim that he was staying at my place for a couple days. It was embarrassing. I'm not even sure if he's my type. We don't know one another too well. But I was able to get a hold of his spare set of keys. I then said goodbye to Ms. Weller and left. Yes, Nathan's family name is Weller. It's pretty boring. Feeling like the biggest piece of shit this side of the planet. The next day went by with me calling in sick. So David would think I was out of the picture, but in reality, I had a plan. I had Nate's second pair of keys to the store, which could allow me to enter after hours. I'm lucky that apparently I was not caught. The security terminal being my best friend for the night, since it isn't active on those nights, one of David's cheap shortcuts to conserve costs. I did technically trespass, but I don't think anyone is the wiser, at least not at the moment. To be honest, I was only doing this because of a hunch regarding these creatures. These things only appear a bit into the graveyard trading hours period, so 11 till 4. But Nathan disappeared at 4:30. So, if the time frame is perhaps something like 11:30 to 4:30, where these things come and go, perhaps that is when they can come into our world, and the inverse. I packed the expected items, flashlights, some rations, heavy winter clothes, and a pair of bush knives. I did also take a permanent marker. I intended to try and see if I could pass through Willie's and into whatever world was on the other side. Getting into the store was easy. I did have the keys, after all. Opening the roller doors, too, was simple. I opened them just enough in an area no one should notice too well and slid under. Weirdly enough, the area outside Willie's was warm, muggy, and oh god, did it stink. You ever smell the sewage tank? I remember once I had to help my uncle crack the one for my current home open, and I never forgot the stink. So imagine my disgust at smelling such a rancid odor all over the place. The walls just past the hallway that linked Willie's the shopping center were caked with mold and brown stains, as if concentrated bin juice had been smeared all over the place. Even though I was quickly starting to become drenched in sweat, I was glad for the coverings as it prevented any of the disgusting rot from touching me. All the other shops in the area looked run down as I made my way towards the back entrance of the shopping center, which happened to take you through a furniture shop to try and invite you to buy something. Inside it was no different, moldering cushions, rotted wood, rusted metal. It was horrid. Well, I got to the automatic double doors that lead outside, though I found that they had fallen apart. Instead, the broken glass worked as the door, whilst the frame had rusted into place. The outside world looked so much similar, but also was strewn with mounds upon mounds of garbage. Plastic wrappers, half-eaten food items, plastic bottles, they all covered any bit of natural aspect of the town streets. It looked as if someone had dumped a landfill over any parts of nature that existed in the local area. The sky was also horrid, ruddy, no stars to be seen. Instead, a thick range of storm clouds covered the skies and brought down hot, stinking rain onto the cracked pavements. I wandered the area for a couple hours, probably 3, before I had to head back. I did not once see any of the consumers, at least while I quietly stalked the streets of the town. It didn't last too long, though. Around the time I went past MCV Theater, I saw the stretched out man from Wednesday, MAGA hat and all. He was screaming like an animal at a poster of a woman. I could easily make out that it was screaming about how hungry it was. I would have been hidden, would not have drawn its attention if it weren't for that damned pigeon I saw when I picked up Nathan on Wednesday, as it fluttered down beside me and began cooing for food. The consumer's head snapped around and locked eyes with me, its face grinning as its jaw unhinged. I probably can't say verbatim what it began to ramble out, but I did make one thing out. Females are the best morsels, it charged me, like full sprint on all fours. I didn't have time to react as one of its tiny hands smashed into my left shoulder and pinned me against the dumpster. Stinking garbage bags toppled over me but it didn't care. For me though, it hurt like a bitch. The fucker tried to pull off my clothes with its other hand, something about the tender part being the torso. It probably wanted to try and take a bite of my breasts. I didn't let it. It got off my scarf before I was able to grasp my bush knife and ram it into the wrist of the hand that was holding me down. It squealed like a damn pig. I took the moment to then grab my other knife and slash it in the face. It backed off, but I couldn't fight it head on, as it quickly regathered its efforts to try and pin me. Yes, in that way, this thing was every woman's fear, but god damn it, I wasn't going to let it take a single bit of skin contact from me. I headbutted it when it grabbed my wrists. I think I popped one of its swollen, oval eyes. It was enough to make it run away, finally. The scuffle hadn't been long, but I was forced to wear my shirt, as my winter jumper and jacket had been wrecked. So I was in the stinking hot with only my bra, singlet, and thin short sleeve to cover me. Truth be told, it felt better to not be swimming in sweat, but the stinging feeling was worse. My skin was going red raw from the air, as if it was acidic. I had no other option but to fall back, head back into the store and leave. But I couldn't leave without at least knowing whether Nathan was alive or not. So I called him once I was in the safety of the rundown MC's toys. The phone rang. It rang for what felt like an eternity. But he picked up. Thank God he did. But he was still experiencing static. Nate? Sarah? Nate, where are you? I think I'm at the old lookout up Beverly Hill. Beverly Hill was a good half hour out of town. How the hell did he get there? Beverly Hill. They didn't want to chase where there wasn't concrete everywhere. Nate, let me come and grab you. I'm sure that there's enough TI-no. It's 3:45 a.m. You just end up stuck here too. I don't get what you mean. 11:30 to 4:30. The two worlds connect. Any time before or after, they are separate. They were right, it's a portal of some kind. Surely there's a way to get you back? I don't know, not on foot at least. There's 3 of them waiting down the hill. That bad? I'll see what I can do. Hang in there, Nate. Please. I'm trying. With that, he hung up, I didn't know what to do, at least when it came to how to help him, at least not yet. But I do have an idea. After that, I went back through Willie's, closed the roller door, left the building. When I got to my vehicle, I ended up having a long and hard cry. I don't think I have the emotional stability now to recall it all, but the reason I had wanted to figure this all out is because I had encountered these things before back when I didn't live in the town Nate and I call home, when I worked as a petrol station clerk. The things I endured, the near-death experience, all by things that hide in another world, only to appear elsewhere as a festering blight, all assisted by things pretending to be people. It's possible I've gotten Nate killed, that I've fucked up beyond compare. I do know that I'm going to post my experience tomorrow night, before I attempt to get Nathan out of that other world to rescue him. I don't know if I ever see that horrid cap wearing consumer again. I'm going to take its other eye. I'm going to sleep for now, try to then work up the courage to post my experience with these consumers and finally mop up my own mess. If I get Nate out, I'll ask him on a date, anything to make him happier, to make up for all of this. If I hadn't asked him to indulge my paranoia on Monday, none of this would likely have happened. The more I pointed out the bizarre, the more it became apparent. This is all heavy stuff. I know, unbelievable too. You can believe me, you can choose not to. I don't really care either way. The only thing I'll ask is advice, some tips. I may be prepped sometimes, but I'm just a lady with a screwed up past and a car. I need tips, ideas, survival quick hacks, the like. Just please help me, please. I don't want to be responsible for Nathan's death. I don't want the only friend I've made in this new home to be dead because of me. See you all another time, guys. I'm sorry that I couldn't give you all much. Asterisk Sarah. Story 5. The internet is filled with stories about people who clip out of reality and into somewhere else. Terms like backrooms/states, woods are common on Reddit. And I'm not here to argue semantics with you. I call them fairy pockets, but even that is just a term I made up. So use what you like, there are no word police. Not that I have found, yet there are no set rules by which one enters a fairy pocket. Sometimes you just slip in by accident, though there's usually an easy way out if you know what to look for. Something that will just not look right and help you pull yourself back to reality. It's hard to explain. My job is that I find them, go into them, and figure out what, if anything, is valuable there and then sell that information to governments or private businesses. You will be shocked at the amount of natural resources some of these places hold. I can assure you that the Iraq War was not about oil without a shadow of a doubt. But they're always dangerous, so it's a tough call on whether or not they're worth it. And, thank God, not mine to make. Usually, you can find some idiots willing to buy your dangerous claim for at least enough to break even, unless it's Rockport. Nobody even tries to claim that godforsaken place anymore. Today I'm just going to tell you about a few places I found. And then, if there are any questions, I'll try and answer them. So without further ado, let's start with Pittsburgh's Infinite City. There is this one place in downtown Pittsburgh, about 2 blocks from the old U.S. Steel building, where if you follow a complicated set of turns and steps, which I can't disclose due to an NDA, you will find yourself in a near-endless, entirely abandoned cityscape of almost identical brick tenements. It, as far as I could tell, served no real practical use to the people I sold it to, but mine is not to reason why. They paid well, and I don't question money on general principle. That said, the thing that struck me as most strange about this place wasn't how empty it was or who built it, being a total mystery. I always have assumed something built these places. No, the strangest part of this was that every single sign or any other piece of writing I could find in this city was written in what I eventually identified as a 14th century dialect of Polish. That's a nice and simple one, not really scary. Though I confess all those empty buildings did get eerie, but most of the things I find are like that, a little off-putting perhaps, but not anything special. And this memoir is dedicated more to my horrific experiences. After all, they're the ones that make for good stories. Now, some places like that feel creepy, but are fine. Others, like what we'll talk about next, feel fine, but are potentially dangerous. If you've ever taken a road trip through Kansas, you'll know how flat it is, but perhaps one or two of you, while driving, have thought you saw a mountain way off in the distance. You probably stopped and shook your head, maybe rubbed your eyes, and it was gone. Good, it doesn't exist, and it can't hurt you. Unless you drive exactly 4 miles over the speed limit for 20 minutes while staring at the mountain. Then take a sharp left onto a dirt road between two cornfields with a wooden sign on an archway over it. The sign may or may not say anything. That tends to change for some reason. The dirt farm road will soon turn into a paved highway, and you will be in Haskell County. It's a nice place if you don't mind the smell of sulfur. It's a geothermal hotspot, and the entire place stinks of eggs. The locals are nice, hard-working folks who will give you the shirt off their back, and really are fine people. But take my advice and don't go to any of the churches in the county. They all have the same preacher who tells the same sermon every week, like a recording. And the people can get violent if you ever look bored during it. Other than that, it's a great place to live, with property values that can't be beat on account of the fact that I'm fairly certain it's still 1973 there. A few hundred miles away, there's one place in the Midwest. Again, for legal reasons, I can't tell exactly how to find. What I can tell is that it's a small regional airport in a big-ish city. That's all I can say. The vending machines all sell products that aren't in business anymore, but I'm not entirely sure if that's supernatural or just some strange gimmick on the part of the airport management. What is weird is that if you walk into one specific woman's bathroom on a Tuesday, there will be an elevator at the far end of the room past the last sink. It takes you up through 99 floors, 98 of which are identical open-plan office space. You cannot see the skyscraper from outside the airport, and actually, some planes fly right through where it should be. Every floor is the same, laid out in long rows of desks with big box computers and off-white landline phones with wood grain siding, each station manned by workers dressed in business casual, talking on phones and generally doing what you'd expect from a call center. The only issue is that they are speaking exclusively in dead languages, Latin, Proto-Finnic, Occitan. I even heard some Akkadian when I was there. Honestly, it's the most well-managed office I've ever seen. Everyone works hard, and nothing ever goes majorly wrong, which I suspect has something to do with the fact that, as far as I could tell, there were no managers to screw things up. I went up to floor 99, but decided against floor 100. You see, 99 was a waiting room like you'd find at a doctor's office, and to access floor 100, you had to take the stairs. The sound coming from up there cannot be described, and I do mean cannot. I have tried repeatedly, and it only leads to my having a seizure. Not wanting to repeat that, I will leave them to your imagination. A buddy of mine who was a priest suggested that I had found purgatory, and perhaps he was right. I'm no theologian, so I'll leave that one to the church. There's an area in San Francisco where you can see what I think is Atlantis, where Alcatraz should be, but I haven't figured out how to get there yet. And there's a way to get to the moon from Houston without NASA being involved. But by far the weirdest fairy pocket I ever found was Mount Prince Nelson National Park in West Virginia. It's a beautiful place, by the way, wonderful hiking, and some absolutely stunning views of the mountains. But I don't recommend you take your kids. It is by far the most dangerous place I have ever been, and I lived in Chicago for 3 months. Long story, I was trying to figure out where all the damn clowns kept coming from. But I digress. MT Prince Nelson is about 700 square miles, located within an area of West Virginia no larger than a Walmart parking lot, which coincidentally is how you get there. Follow the steps correctly, and where the main doors are, a stone arch will appear with an NPS ranger who charges you 42 cents as an entry fee and hands you a waiver to sign in the reasonably likely event that you die in the park. There are miles and miles of roads, both paved and unpaved, and a core area around a lake that contains the majority of the tourist stuff. It's more or less safe on account of the National Park Service maintaining around-the-clock watch on the perimeter that would make the Marines look sloppy. And the flight of F-14 Eagle fighter jets flying 24/7 hot laps around the area is a great comfort. But we weren't paid to be comfortable, and our bosses wanted us deeper in the park and off-trail. Once you get outside of the patrolled area, things take a turn. Everything, and I do mean everything, wants to kill you. There are beetles, insect, the size of beetles, for starters. The cool part, however, is the dinosaurs that roam free in the park. Side note, that whole "they can't see you if you don't move" thing is bull. Ask me how I know. It's a rainforest, so the backwoods camping isn't easy, because hacking your way off trail is a nightmare, even without the venomous trees and psychic frogs. But I have to say, It really is beautiful. Puts Yellowstone to shame on a bad day, and that's saying it mildly. When I first went to MT Prince Nelson, I was part of a team of specialists called in by the National Park Service to figure out why they kept getting paperwork from their employees there despite no knowledge of it existing. We spent about 6 months figuring out how to get in, and that's when things started to go badly wrong. Our team lead, an older guy named Donald, was the first to die. He had taken watch around our camp on the first night after we left the safe zone, and some kind of big ape-looking thing came out of the woods and attacked. Beat poor Donnie half to death before we were able to kill it, and he was dead by the time we got him back to a ranger station for medevac. We had a job to do, and the pay was good, so we pushed on deeper into the woods. Where the 9 surviving men of our team got knocked down to 5 on the 3rd day by some kind of screaming fog, though all things considered, it wasn't so bad, as it also killed the T-Rex that was chasing us. Jacoby, one of the newbies, went nuts that night and started talking about how he had communed with a goddess at the center of the mountain in his sleep, and that he needed to go out and join her amidst the rocks lest all reality be consumed. I had to put him down with my 45 before the crazy spread to the rest of the team, which might be my least favorite part of this damn job. The remaining 4 of us found an old cabin nearby and decided to hold up for the night. By the next morning, we were down to 3. I hadn't gotten to Jacoby in time, I guess. We reached the decision that we were going to try and make our way back to the safe zone after a short debate. I always try to be democratic where possible. So we started back. When we had been walking for around 7 hours, Rodriguez, who was on point, signaled halt. He said he thought he had heard a twig breaking about 100 yards to our right. He was right. 2 worse luck. If he hadn't stopped, maybe that prick wouldn't have been able to line up a shot. The arrow took Rodriguez in the chest, sending him to the ground. Me and O'Leary opened up with our weapons in the direction of the archer, but I don't think we hit him. Rodriguez would have survived had the arrow not been poisoned, but he was already turning green and bleeding from his eyes by the time I got the bandage over the wound. I gave him last rites by sticking a stake through his heart and zip tying across to his right hand so he wouldn't come back as anything unnatural. Then the 2 of us left and set off again in the direction of home. O'Leary and I made a long way that day without stopping and ended up camping close enough to the safe zone that we were fairly confident in making it there the next day. I took first watch and chewed coffee ground to stay awake, as I had no doubts that we were still being hunted. The attack came sometime around 0:30 when I got a feeling on the back of my neck that I was being watched. I have learned to listen to these feelings, and it's why I'm still alive. Diving for the ground, the arrow just narrowly missed me, slamming into a tree a few yards behind. O'Leary was awake now and scrambling for his rifle while I fired blindly into the trees from cover. We were unlikely to make it back without getting rid of this hunter, so I signaled for him to cover me as I crawled away from our camp. It took about 10 minutes or so before I found his tracks. 2 muddy boot prints and a Snickers wrapper gave away where he had been standing, and a trail of greenish-blue blood leading away from the spot told me one of us had hit the bastard. O'Leary and I stalked him for about half a mile before we found him collapsed by a creek bed, panting heavily. A handsome young man dressed in bright orange hunting gear. The only sign he wasn't human was the metallic red hair and his almost neon green eyes. He cussed me out in what might have been an early ancestor of Welsh, before O'Leary blew his brains all over the forest floor. I wasn't sure that would stop him for long, so just to be safe, I hogtied him before we left. O'Leary quit this job after we made it back to civilization. I can't blame him. The last I heard, he had become a Buddhist monk and lived up some mountain in Colorado. I just hoped it wasn't anywhere near Rockport. That is one pocket that even I won't go to. But the pay from a National Park Service was more than enough for me to retire on, had I wanted to. So there are certainly perks to this job. Why do I still do it? I would love to get philosophical, but frankly, I just like it. It tickles the part of the human spirit that first pushed man to sail across oceans or fly to the moon. And like those great explorers of the past, I'm not sure if I could stop even if I wanted to. It has its hooks in me and won't let go. I have other stories, of course. Might even post them later, but these were a few that stood out to me. I will try to answer any questions, but given the number of NDAs and ancient blood oaths I've had to sign over the years, I make no promises about how much I can deliver. that said, if this job sounds fun to you or the money sounds like a great way to get rich quick, I really do not recommend you take it up. People like that don't tend to last long. And for the love of all that is holy, if you are in Colorado and see a sign for a town called Rockport, turn around. Story 6. I work in HR at a mid-sized tech company in downtown Seattle. 3 months ago, we got a new CEO, and I need to tell someone what I've witnessed. I can't sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see his glowing red pupils reflecting the Netflix loading screen. Mr. Damien Furness arrived on a Tuesday morning in November. The moment he walked through our glass doors, the temperature in the building dropped 10 degrees. Everyone assumed it was the heating system acting up again, but I noticed something else. The fluorescent lights flickered whenever he passed underneath them, and every computer screen briefly displayed static. Our first meeting was supposed to be about the quarterly HR review. I'd prepared a comprehensive presentation covering employee satisfaction surveys, salary adjustments, benefits packages, and retention strategies. Standard stuff. I was nervous but ready. Mr. Infernus sat across from me in the conference room, his impossibly tall frame draped in a suit that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His eyes were the color of charcoal, and when he smiled, I swear I caught a glimpse of teeth that were just a little too sharp. "So," he said, his voice carrying an odd echo despite the room's acoustics, "tell me about your plans." I launched into my presentation, clicking through slides about compensation analysis and market rates. I was maybe 5 minutes in when I noticed he wasn't looking at the screen. He was staring out the window with an expression of profound boredom, his fingers drumming against the table in a rhythm that sounded suspiciously like screaming. "The salary recommendations," I continued, pointing to a detailed chart showing proposed increases across departments, take into account cost of living adjustments, and he held up one pale hand. His fingernails were black and unnaturally long. "Just give him the highest," he said, not even glancing at my carefully prepared data. "Whatever number is biggest on your little chart there. Everyone gets that." I blinked. "Sir, that would mean entry-level employees would earn the same as senior management. The budget implications alone, done." He waved dismissively, and I swear the air around his hand shimmered with heat. "What else?" I tried to continue with the benefits discussion, but he'd already lost interest. His head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then his eyes lit up, literally lit up with a dull red glow. "This office," he said suddenly. "Where's the entertainment system?" "We don't really have one. There's a small TV in the break room for employee lunch hours." No. He stood abruptly, and the conference room windows rattled slightly. "I need a proper screen. At least 200 inches. Maybe 250. Can your break room accommodate that?" "I don't think a screen that size would fit." "Make it fit." His smile revealed those two sharp teeth again. "And I want Netflix. Default account, premium subscription. And Crunchyroll. I have some catching up to do on the latest season of several shows. Oh, and attach a PS5. The good one, not whatever budget console you people probably think is adequate." I was scribbling notes, try to keep up. "Sir, a 200-inch television would cost." "I don't care about the cost." He leaned forward, and the smell of sulfur wafted across the table. "But here's what I do care about. I want you to check the Netflix account every month. Every single month. Generate a report of what's been watched, when it was watched, and for how long. You want viewing statistics? Comprehensive viewing statistics." His eyes were definitely glowing now, casting red shadows on the wall behind him. "I need to know that my investment is being properly utilized. If that screen isn't getting adequate use, there will be consequences." The way he said consequences made my blood turn to ice water. That was 3 months ago. The installation took 2 weeks. We had to knock down a wall between the break room and the adjacent storage closet to accommodate the massive screen. The thing is so large, it's visible from the parking lot through the windows. The installation crew kept complaining about equipment malfunctions and unexplained electrical surges, but they got it done. And I've been generating those monthly reports ever since. Here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. According to the Netflix viewing data, someone is watching content on that screen every single night from midnight to 6 a.m. Every night, without fail. The viewing history is strange. A lot of foreign horror films, documentaries about historical disasters, and an unusual number of cooking shows, specifically ones about flame grilling and barbecue techniques. Oh, and anime. So much anime. Particularly series involving demons, underworld mythology, and shows where the protagonist has to manage some sort of supernatural organization. But here's what really terrifies me. Our building security system shows that nobody enters or leaves the office during those nighttime viewing sessions. The doors remain locked, the alarm system stays armed, and the security cameras show empty hallways. Yet something is definitely watching that screen for 6 hours every night. I've tried staying late to investigate, but every time I approach the break room after sunset, the temperature drops so dramatically that my breath fogs. Last week, I worked up the courage to peek around the corner at 1 a.m. The massive screen was on, casting an eerie blue glow throughout the space, and I could hear the faint sound of dialogue, something in Japanese with subtitles. But there was no one there. No one visible anyway. The worst part? Mr. Infernus always seems pleased with my monthly reports. He reads them with genuine interest, nodding approvingly at the high usage statistics. Sometimes he makes comments like, I see someone has excellent taste in psychological thrillers, or good, they're finally catching up on the classics. 2 weeks after implementing the salary changes, I accidentally overheard a heated phone call between Mr. Infernus and the board of directors. I was delivering quarterly reports to his office when I heard raised voices through his door. Well, one raised voice. The board member on speakerphone was practically shouting, "Damien, what the hell were you thinking? Entry-level programmers making $200,000? Customer service reps earning executive salaries? The labor costs have tripled overnight." That's when Mr. Infernus's voice changed. The temperature in the entire building, no, it felt like all of downtown Seattle, dropped 20 degrees in an instant. When he spoke, his words came out like shards of ice, each syllable crackling with something that made my spine feel like it was freezing from the inside out. "I have my ways," he said, and the way he pronounced ways made it sound like he was discussing implements of torture. "Profits will be higher than ever, regardless of salary expenses. I promise you that. But how can you possibly?" I said, "I have my ways." The cold in his voice was so intense I could see my breath fogging in the hallway. "Trust the process. You'll see the results in the quarterly reports." There was silence on the phone. Then, in a much smaller voice, the board member said, "Of course, sir. We trust your judgment." After he hung up, I heard him chuckle, a sound like ice cracking on a frozen lake. The terrifying thing is he was right. Despite the massive salary increases, our company profits have soared by 300% over the past 3 months. Our clients are signing contracts faster than ever, often for amounts that seem too good to be true. Competing companies in our sector keep mysteriously losing major deals to us. And I've heard rumors that several of our rivals have been experiencing unusual equipment failures and staff shortages. I don't ask questions about our sudden success. I just process the paperwork and try not to think about why our new clients always look slightly dazed when they leave contract meetings, or why they sometimes have small, perfectly circular burn marks on their palms. On the bright side, the massive TV has become the heart of our office culture during the day. During lunch breaks, you'll find clusters of employees gathered around that enormous screen, sharing meals while watching everything from comedy specials to nature documentaries. The programming department discovered a shared love of anime and hosts weekly viewing parties, complete with homemade snacks and heated discussions about plot theories. Marketing and sales bonded over a month-long tournament on the PS5, and even our normally antisocial IT team has started joining the group for Marvel movie marathons. There's something genuinely heartwarming about seeing Sarah from accounting explain the intricacies of Attack on Titan to Bob from finance, or watching our interns teach the senior developers how to play the latest games. The camaraderie is real, the laughter is infectious, and for those daylight hours, our break room feels like the coziest living room you could imagine. Yesterday, he asked me to expand the subscription services. Add Hulu, he said, and maybe that new horror streaming platform, Shudder I think it's called. I have a feeling our nighttime viewer would appreciate the selection. I don't know what's watching our 250-inch screen every night. I don't know why Mr. Infernus is so invested in keeping it entertained. And I definitely don't know why he insists on being called Mr. Infernus when his business cards clearly say his first name is Damien. What I do know is that our employee satisfaction scores have never been higher. Everyone loves their new salaries, morale is through the roof, and productivity has increased by 40%. It's like having the perfect boss. As long as you don't ask too many questions about the glowing red eyes, or the sulfur smell, or the impossible viewing statistics from our empty office building. I'm writing this at 2:47 a.m. from my apartment. I can't sleep because I keep thinking about what I saw on tonight's Netflix viewing report. Someone, or something, just started a 14-hour marathon of a series called The Good Place. I have a feeling it's taking notes. Story 7. I rented a cheap apartment in a part of town that didn't really feel like it wanted me there. The hallway was always too long. The lights flickered in perfect rhythm, like they were practicing a message they hadn't figured out how to say. There was a door in my unit that shouldn't have been there. I didn't see it when I moved in, but one morning I woke up and it was just part of the wall. A door like any other, slightly ajar, breathing almost. I ignored it for a while, but it watched me, hummed to itself when I passed. And then one day I opened it. Inside was my apartment again, but not quite. It was ahead of me by 3 seconds. I'd lift my arm, and a version of me in that room had already done it. I blinked, and they finished first. It echoed my thoughts back before I had them. Then it turned toward me. It was me, my face, but the eyes, something behind them had cracked. Not broken, not shattered. Worse, they'd reformed around something. And it spoke. If you skip the next 10 seconds, you won't see what breaks you. You'll keep your life, your little habits, your warmth. But if you watch, if you look, everything changes. This is your choice. I felt it immediately. That pull, the curiosity, the pricklingly tiny fear, but also trust that this other me had seen something and didn't want me to carry it. So I closed my eyes, let the 10 seconds pass. When I opened them, the room was empty. The copy was gone. The mirror apartment erased. I thought that was the end of it. Thought I'd made the right choice. That night, I woke up crying. No reason. Just wet cheeks, a pounding heart, and that sick, floating feeling of grief I couldn't name. Like my soul was mourning something I'd asked it to forget. My hands trembled. My pillow was soaked. My chest fell hollow, like a violin that had stopped resonating. And then I heard it. My voice, but not mine, pressing itself into the cracks of my skull like cold air through a broken window. I saw it. I screamed so loud it cracked something in the world. I begged to undo it, and it said, "Go back. Erase the memory. Choose not to look at me, so that this version of me, you, could live." Then it began. First a flicker, then a sting. A sharp, unbearable prick behind my eyes like hot wire threading through soft tissue. I felt something reach through my skull and pull. The pain created new language, but I couldn't react. I wasn't allowed. No scream, no flinch, just the dry sound of my breath catching in my throat. "You'll have to be nonchalant about it," the voice said. "Otherwise she'll know." I didn't understand what that meant. But then I looked in the mirror, and she was there. She had my face, but her expression wasn't confused or broken. It was calm, knowing. She smiled, just faintly, and raised her hand to mimic threading something through her own skull. That's when the world shifted again. The hum returned. The mirror began to breathe. The glass softened under my hand like warm breath on skin. And I knew I could go in, but only if I wanted to. Only if I truly, deeply wanted to. I stood there, palm pressed to the mirror, heart trembling. The room behind it inhaled, slow and patient. Not demanding, just waiting. Waiting to see if I loved her enough to ruin myself. Because that's what she did for me. And I did. Not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because I saw her smile and understood what she carried. I thought crossing over would end it, but it only made the work begin. The memories weren't just removed. They had to be scrubbed, carefully, manually, on hands and knees. One by one, I would find them curled like parasites inside extraordinary moments, inside raucous, uncontrolled laughter, perfectly warm sunlight for a cat to bathe in, gorgeous music that inspires people to love. Sometimes, while scrubbing, I'd say something I didn't recognize, a phrase in a language I don't know. And the moment I noticed it, it would vanish like breath on a mirror. And sometimes, after I finished, something new would grow there. A flicker of unease, a word that felt too sharp, a dream that ended before it started. I wasn't just erasing myself. I was planting the idea to look. Sometimes I'd reach for the smell of toast and feel my stomach lurch with revulsion. Sometimes I'd recall an old dream and watch it turn inside out before it dissolved. I'd look at someone I loved and forget why I loved them for half a second. Then remember, but with a different image, a different voice. And every time I pulled one out, I saw it again. I saw it, and then I had to pretend I didn't. Because if I fought, if I screamed or resisted, it would come back whole, like a bone healed wrong and rebroken. The voice came again, this time not to explain, not to console, just to remind me. It said, "You will live a long, natural life, dying at a very old age, but you will constantly have to keep rewriting yourself, replacing broken pieces with nearby ones, reconfiguring the shape of who you are so that it no longer touches what you saw. You will smile, love, work, and every now and then something inside you will go still, and you'll have to rewrite yourself again, knowing that there's something that would cause you to go to these lengths." Then it said, or you can just let yourself see it. You can stop fighting. Let it fill you. Let yourself know it. Let yourself end. I will offer this every time you change yourself. I nodded, not an agreement, just an understanding, because I knew what it meant now. This wasn't healing. This was decay done politely. And every time I rebuilt myself, it would wait just outside the cracks, offering peace, offering truth, offering madness. And in the still moments, I find myself mouthing syllables I don't recognize, words that feel important, answers to questions no one has ever even thought to come up with. And someday, one beautiful and glorious day, my curiosity will be too magnificent. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.